Hey everybody, welcome back to the warbossfitz channel. I am warbossfitz, and this week we're going to be looking at Grimdark Future Warfleets. What we're going to do here, this is like a welcome back to Warfleets episode, because I haven't done anything in Warfleets for like a year. I'm going to use the wonderful OPR fan wiki and read their breakdowns of how the fleets work, telling us what the flavor is going to be, and then we'll also talk about where you can find models for your fleets. So in Grimdark Future Warfleets, there are only 17 factions. So there are a few factions that will just kind of melt into the others, or are not big enough to actually make it off their own planet to be, rolling around with the whole fleet. So we are going to go through alphabetically, and of course we start with the alien hives. In Warfleets, the alien hives have a focus on ship swarms and squadrons. Their ships are some of the absolute cheapest in the game because you want a lot of them on the board. Now your ships usually have worse speed and they activate later, but they are cheaper and have better defenses, or they are a specialized ship that you have them decked out for ramming or broadsides or something like that. They're real good specializers, kind of like they are in Grimdark Future. They have a whole lot of tools in the toolbox. Just pick a lane and go for it. And their squadrons are either tankier, they can block for others, or extremely good at anti-ship actions if you have other ships around them. And in true swarm fashion, yes, your little squadrons can be a blade of armor for your larger ships. Next, we move on to the Battle Brothers. Now, there's no differentiation in all of the different Battle Brothers. Battle Brothers are just one group in Warfleets. Their ships focus on speed, mobility, flanking, and bonuses when attacking enemy sides. So if you are shooting into the side of an enemy ship, some of your weapons are just better when they hit them in that facing. Now, their squadrons are better. They are superior than others, but they are expensive. You can also then enhance them with some of the systems you can put on your ships to support your squadrons out there. Next, we move on to the Blessed Sisters, the faction with a focus on morale check based abilities and retaliation, as well as blazing tokens that deal damage over time. There are a ton of ways to just light the enemy fleet on fire, and I love it. Their ships are either better at morale checks, or they have more powerful turrets when they start getting damaged. The fleet is pretty much split right down the middle. There's a heavy, medium, and a light ship for both of those categories. So you can go all better morale checks, or you can just bear down on the enemy. They have a few powerful squadrons. They also have access to squadrons that ram the enemy and explode, putting out more burning tokens. The Blessed Sisters have a real thing for sacrifice. The Dow Union fleet are able to use laser markers to make their shooting superior, just like they are in Grimdark Future with their targeting lasers. Their ships mainly either have worse but longer range turrets, or better but worse range turrets. Again, the fleet is split down the middle. You could mix those, or you could lean into one version exclusively. They have support drone squadrons to put out more laser markers, and they also have a battlesuit squadron, which is versatile, very powerful, and can just ram into the enemy ship and become boarders. And also, it has one of my favorite squadrons, which is the smart missiles. You've got some ships that spawn smart missiles, and as the game goes on, you can build up one hell of a wave of missiles to just launch at the enemy and say, deal with this. Then we have the Dark Elf Raiders, lovers of boarding tokens. Their ships are either faster or able to overlap without issue, meaning they don't take any damage, but they also give out boarding tokens when they do. While their squadrons are specialized and somewhat costly, they are very potent in their roles. Going through the different war gear and the different weapon systems for the Dark Elf Raiders, it reads like a murderer's row of ways to get into the enemy ship and rip them apart from the inside. You might be able to win a game without ever firing a weapon proper and just doing it entirely with boarding actions. Next, there's the Dwarf Guild. Slow but durable. These ships are like hitting a brick wall in space. They have better toughness, or they just have additional health stacked onto their ships, so they can take more of a beating. Their squadrons are very good at defense play, but their speed hurts their ability to attack. Same concept applies as it does in Age of Fantasy or Grimdark Future. You want to start moving towards objectives early because it's going to take you longer to get there. But these guys, they're going to be able to take a beating, keep on moving, and once they get close, they've got some weapons that are ridiculous at mid to short range. Next, there is the Eternal Dynasty. Most of their ships can teleport a short distance each round, giving them versatile mobility. That's an understatement. Most of their ships, after they're done moving, they can teleport 2 inches, but it doesn't say anything about facing. I'm not sure on this one, but if it allows you to change your facing, that is unmatched mobility. There's also a piece of war gear you can put on the ship that when they teleport, they're able to switch around where their weapons are on their ship. They do have a grand ship called the Akbeko, which is a master of war. It gets bonuses for range and damage. It can't teleport, but you can strap so many systems to it, it's going to kill stuff before it even gets close enough to care. The Eternal Dynasty also uses beacon markers, kind of like the targeting lasers that the Dow Union does, but instead of getting better shooting with them, the beacon markers of the Eternal Dynasty make it easier for the Eternal Dynasty to ram into you and or generate boarding tokens. And their squadrons they have are able to apply and use the beacon markers or are able to ambush enemies. They're able to slam into the enemy and start fighting them from the inside. Next, we move on to the Havoc brothers, are focused on mid to short range combat. Most of their weapons are between 6 and 12 inch range, with just a few that are longer range than that, but they are pretty darn strong. Now the ships themselves, again, the fleet is split into 2 different ideas here. One half of that is whenever they get shot at and take damage, they can teleport 2 inches, which is rather interesting idea for mobility. Maybe you're going to be able to kind of pop yourself out of range of other enemy ships. Or the other half of the coin is they're able to start the game with extra speed, being able to move extra inches if they start their activation inside their deployment zone. Now their squadrons are on the cheaper side, and they are able to do their job pretty well because they don't have any like anti-ship or anti-squadron ones. They're able to kind of middle of the road pretty good there. But they also have the Hell Engine Squadron. For 10 points, if you ram into an enemy ship, they get 2 boarding tokens. So Havoc can be all up inside of you. Next one we have is the High Elf Fleets. And for the High Elf Fleets, you have to set up a solar wind direction on the board. That goes over it when you look at their fleet. Now, with the solar wind going on, that gives the High Elf fleets lots of mobility because they're able to drift with the wind, giving them more options when they move, and they're able to pivot however they want. They do have some very powerful squadrons. Like they have a squadron, the Wraith Squadron, that's able to just heal itself and needs to take more damage before it goes off the board. Your squadrons are also going to be able to get more powerful when you put on the Falconer title, but it is a High Elf fleet. There is going to be shenanigans. So much so, to the point where if you're thinking about playing the High Elf fleet, go check it out. I won't ruin the surprise. Next we have the Human Defense Force. Their fleet is kind of all over the place, in a good way. In a good way. If you have an idea that you want to do, there is going to be a Human Defense Force ship that will do it better. Like they have arsenal vessels. Ships can mount 3 weapons in its front facing and up to 2 in its side facing, so it is just a beast of a forward attacker. Siege vessels. Weapons mounted in its front get the deadly rule automatically. Lined vessels, you can't mount anything in the nose, but it turns everything into broadside weapons and makes already existing broadside weapons even better. Artillery vessels for longer range. Strike vessels for light ships with dual mounts in the front. Support vessels that are just giving out upgrades to the rest of the fleet, and they're harder to hit. The only thing, like, normal about this fleet is the squadrons. The squadrons are all pretty basic. We got a fragile squadron, anti-ship one, and an anti-squadron squadron. But overall, the Human Defense Force fleet is made to be sledgehammers. You just have to make your choice of which direction you want your ships to be pointing when they start throwing hammers. Next, we have an interesting concept of a fleet. We have the infected colonies. They focus on objectives, boarding, survivability, and converting enemy ships into zombies. How do they do that? They have outbreak ships. Ships that aren't deployed normally, but instead are created when enemy ships are destroyed while having boarding tokens. It's powerful for both getting a cheap ship and taking objective tokens from the enemy. The other side of the coin with the fleet are vector ships. Again, they're slightly cheaper, but when they fire their turret at the enemy, it gives out boarding tokens instead of damage. And then for their squadrons, they are going to focus on putting out more boarding tokens or just straight up exploding on the enemy. Next, we have the Machine Cult. It's a faction that likes to keep its ships and squadrons close together. Their ships either can't put guns on their front arc, but they have superior turrets, or they have the ability to get scrap tokens for defensive use when something blows up around them, and they get abilities when allies die nearby. And their squadrons, they all trade their evasion for high toughness, meaning that they are way harder to kill in traditional squadron combat. Next faction are my boys, the Orc Marauders. They're a faction with heavy focus on close quarters boarding and ramming. Their ships either have Orc crews, making them better at ramming and worse at long-range shooting, or Goblin crews, who are better at sustaining long-range shooting but worse up close. Their squadrons have a focus on either speed, destruction, or scramming, but are less concerned with self-preservation. And who doesn't like a fleet where there's a ship called a chopper ship? It is a flying axe head that is just meant to plow into stuff. Next faction is the Ratmen clans. They focus on surrounding the enemy and flanking them with a side of longer range firepower. Their fleet wants to surround the enemy and just set up crossfires. It's actually in their rule called Rat Pack. Your turrets get pluses to hit and strength if there are friendly ships on the opposite side of the ship that you're shooting at, so they definitely want to swarm stuff. Next, we got the Rebel Guerrillas. They are a faction that focus on swarming the enemy. Their ships are slow and easier to kill, but extremely cheap and can be made even more disposable. They have good squadrons with nice abilities, and they can create even more through hidden hangars on the board. They've got a few ships with the volatile rule, and they explode in a 3-inch ball of fire whenever they are destroyed. How strong that fire is depends on the size of the ship, and you can put it on a size 5 ship. So there is the possibility of catastrophic detonation to just daisy chain through your whole fleet. That's something I would do just for the fun of it. And in their squadrons, they have a sinkhole mine squadron, where you don't just buy one. You buy 6 of them at a time for the price of one. And they are able to move out and stop making a linear minefield on the board. There are some real interesting things in this fleet sheet here. It's another one of those that the more you look through it, the more you get random ideas of, oh, that's cool, or oh, I want to try doing that. There's lots of flavor baked into these guys. They might not be the best in combat, but they can do all kinds of fun stuff out there. The next fleet we have is the Robot Legion. Technological superiority, slow speeds, and potent guns, able to form a nexus network connecting all of their allies together. Their ships can either teleport to nearby allied ships, or project their weapons through nearby allied ships. Their squadrons can also teleport around through the nexus network that they set up, letting them be where they need to be with ease. They are more costly and extremely slow. They have to be with how powerful they are. And then finally, our last fleet is the Saurian Starhost. They are a faction with a focus on morale check based spell abilities, durability, and turret effects. Their ships are either tankier from the front or vassals, which allow them to use nearby allies' size rather than their own for morale check abilities. Their squadrons are more costly, but they are better at what they do and also able to teleport to allied vassal ships, if unengaged. So that's a quick overview of all of the different fleets for Grimdark Future Warfleets. Now, what do we do for miniatures? I'll go ahead and say there are Games Workshop miniatures for Battlefleet Gothic that are out in the wild. They're not in production anymore, so they are getting harder and harder to find as time goes on. Now that I think about it, a lot of the companies that make spaceships that I was thinking about no longer do it. There was Star Wars Armada. That was a good one. It got stopped not too long ago. Firestorm Armada has some pretty cool models, and again, they kind of stopped production, or the game just kind of stopped. I don't know if it's officially gone, but I haven't seen anything for like 5 years, so I think it's gone. There is Drop Fleet Commander. Again, not entirely sure if they're still producing. Okay, Future, I edited in there. I have found it on TT Combat. It looks like this is where all of their stuff is hiding. Like, they have quite a few direct-only things here from TT Combat. So that's good. At least we know it's not dead and gone. If you can't get your hands on physical stuff like this, and you have access to a 3D printer, this is one of the genres that 3D printing has helped take off, because there are a multitude of 3D printable spaceships out there. The first one I want to talk about is a channel sponsor, PrintedStarships.com. If you are looking for anything on this website, I do have a discount code down in the description. And it looks like they got some Station Forge stuff up and running. They do have quite the selection of different collections of ships. If you're looking for something from popular sci-fi, it's probably here. Next creator I want to shout out is Brander Rowlett, better known as Sable Badger. On My Mini Factory, he has made quite a few FDM-friendly prints that you can use for Warfleets here. I have printed some of his fleets and used them on the channel. The last Warfleet games I had a year ago was his Ratmen clans and the Saurian star hosts. Udo's 3D World also has a couple of fleets available over here on Cults 3D. They are open priced, so he's just looking for like a donation when you pick them up. There's also Martian models. These are more like a harder sci-fi look to them, or something that looks like it would be, believable. By that I mean this looks like something that we would travel the stars in the not too distant, maybe next 500 years. And then, I don't normally bring this up, but there is just good old Thingiverse. If you go on the Thingiverse and type in either the fleet name or battle fleet or spaceship fleet, there will be stuff that you can find to print for free. So this is kind of why I say that the golden age of starship printing is here, because there's so much of it that you can get for free, and there's so much of it that you can get for just a small either donation or a price that's pretty much negligible. Oh, and also, I forgot that One Page Rules does have their own set of ship 3D prints, but they aren't specific. They don't really tie themselves to an individual faction. All of these they designed and they released a few years ago before the switch over to Grimdark Future Warfleets. Back then it used to just be called FTL. But these models do look great, and with the right paint job, they can represent whatever you want, because again, like all the OPR games, Warfleets is model agnostic. So that will do it for me tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Hopefully we're going to be having some more Warfleets action in the future. But for now, remember to check out the sponsors down there, PrintedStarships.com, where you can pick up something for every one of these fleets. We also have Corvus Terrain down there, again with another discount code. Check out Army Painter for all of your hobby painting needs. I hope you guys are having fun playing OPR wherever you are. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.